Hello and welcome to Lancer's Starcraft. I'm Lancer, and this is a companion video to the Starcraft caster terminology video. And this is to me, hopefully a shorter video, just about the individual race and terminology that goes along with the individual races that I think would be better served talking about them in this format rather than just with a list of general stuff. So first thing I'm talking about is Zerg. I'm a Zerg player, so I'm very familiar with sort of the Zerg terminology. The first one, which you'll probably, hopefully, never see in any sort of really high competitive game, but you'll probably see at some point in your StarCraft careers, and you'll certainly hear people talk about it, often jokingly. But first term I'll talk about is six pool. The way you want to basically, whenever you hear a building and a number together, so six pool or 10 gate or 12 racks. This the idea of that building is being built at that number of supply. So six pool means that you're building your spawning pool at six supply. Which, if you notice, when the game starts out, you start with six supply. So what this means is one of your very first drones, you're turning into a spawning pool. And from there, usually a player will wait for that spawning pool to build, and they will build nothing but Zerglings. So it's the epitome of a Zergling rush. It's the quickest possible way you can get Zerglings out. And it's a very cheesy thing. You'll almost never see pros do it. You'll almost never see high-level players do it. It's really a terrible thing. I hate six pooling because, I'm a Zerg player and I work really hard on trying to, have this sort of mid-game and early game and late game and trying to get better. And then somebody walks in and says, "Hey, I can play Zerg. Here's a six pool. Yeah, I'm good to go." It drives me nuts. Another very common term that you can hear with other races, but mainly this is something I hear with Zerg, is this idea of fast expanding. It's really basically expanding before you have attacking units on the field. So my base build when I play 1v1s is usually I go 13 pool, 16 hatch. So I build my spawning pool at 13, and then I keep building drones, and then I build a second hatchery at my natural expansion at 16 supply. And that's a fast expand build. It's a high economy build, but it's also one that leaves you very vulnerable to timing attacks in the mid game and even sort of in the earlier game if your opponent is trying to rush you in some way. Next time I want to talk about is a Baneling bust. Banelings, those cute little Banelings, explode on things and everyone loves them, except when you use them to you basically very early on in the game you rush to your Baneling's nest and usually you'll get Zergling speed and you build a bunch of Banelings and you'll try to break down a Terran or Protoss player's wall and rush into his base and end the game. Often called a really cheesy play, but kind of fun to do. Next thing that you'll hear talked about a lot is the idea of expanding the creep and spreading the creep. Something that you really want to do as a Zerg player, basically using your queens to lay down creep tumors because your units all get that speed bonus on the creep, which is really important. Next I'm going to talk about the Protoss terminology. Protoss I really think is my second best race. If I had to pick a second race, it would be Protoss. Some things that you'll hear talked about, or this idea of two gate. So basically building two gateways and then attacking and having some sort of aggression. Then you'll hear very often a four gate, which is you build four gateways, warp gates, and you'll build a units and you'll try for some sort of timing attack, and it's very powerful. Something that you really won't see at the high level players, the higher level games, is a cannon rush, but it's really popular at the the silver level. Basically, you get a forge very early and you try to contain or even spread cannons into your opponent's bases. Protoss is very annoying. And then the other thing you'll hear about, kind of going along with 2-gate and 4-gate, is, sort of like a X number of gates robo. What does that mean? That means you're building a certain number of gateways and then a robotics facility. And, it's just sort of another going along, you're getting these units and then I'm doing a timing push. But this is the build I'm going with. A term that you'll hear almost every game, you'll see it, almost every Protoss player does it. And that's the idea of proxy pylons, where you'll build a pylon close to your enemy's base, and if you have warp gates, you can just warp in units in that field with the warp gate mechanic. So you'll hear that, you'll see that a lot. Players will try to hide pylons in odd places inside the base and warp in units and try to sneak in behind the defenses. So that's that sort of idea behind that. And really, the last thing I want to talk about is the idea of chrono boosting. Every Nexus has a latent power and it has energy where they can cast the spell on any building that's already finished, and whatever's being produced in that building is produced faster. So, for example, if you chrono boost your very own Nexus and it chrono boosts itself, your workers will build much faster. I think it might be 2 times as fast, but they build much faster for a short amount of time. So you hear a lot of caches will talk about, he's saving his chrono boost for something, often saving chrono boost for warp gate tech, because you want to get that very, very soon. And that you chrono boost very important things. Moving along to the Terran, these are really just sort of builds and ideas that you'll see very often. One of the first ones you'll hear of is somebody doing the 1-1-1 build. What this means is it's really just going right up the tech tree, right? So if you think of the main Terran production facilities, first you have your barracks, so they'll get 1 barracks, and then you can build your factory, so they get 1 factory, and then once you have the factory, you can build a starport, so you'll have 1 starport, and that's really what that means, 1-1-1. And they'll build units out of that, and it's often very powerful. You can get there's a lot of variation you can make from there, but that's really the general idea behind it. You're getting to your starport very quickly. Another thing, really not a build, but something that you'll see occasionally is called a Thor ship. Thors are great units. They're bulky, they're slow, they do a lot of damage. So what players will do is they'll use a medevac, and a medevac can carry 1 Thor, and it does this cute little thing where it transforms into this little box. And anyway, they basically use the medevac to drop it in the enemy's base, and then sort of use the medevac to maneuver it around because it's much faster that way, much more maneuverable. So that's really what a Thor ship means, The next one I talk about is just this is a really basic idea of sort of a Terran who's going bio. It's sort of this idea that they're really only getting biological units. So Marines, Marauders, Ghosts, that sort of idea. These units that are ground units. The idea is that there's human beings in that. That they're biological. They're life forms that are operating. They're not machines. Okay, and the final thing is something you'll see a lot Terrans do all the time, and you'll definitely hear this mentioned of a Terran going mech, or sort of a meching Terran, or any sort of variation of that word mech. Usually means the opposite of what bio means, is that there's some sort of mechanical unit, sort of so you got tanks and Vikings and Thors and Hellions. That's sort of meching, and you'll see the Terran players will do this a lot against Zerg. It's very hard for a Zerg to counter a meching Terran. But that's sort of the idea. It's really just bio and mech are sort of flip sides of the same coin. They're just 2 paths that a Terran player can go down. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I can mention using mules and orbital commands can use mules and scans and supply drops, where you can make planetary fortresses. But that's really a basic idea, and I think most people sort of understand that idea. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. This will hopefully end all of my non-video videos for the time being, and I can finally start getting some gameplay up. Very exciting. Alright guys, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.